All right, our next speaker, very excited to have Jennifer out here. Jennifer Fraser, she has volunteered in different capacities for this event for many, many, many years, and now she is on the stage. Very excited about that. She is the Director of Design at Macadamian. Macadamian is a local company with roots, global roots. Apparently she spends far too much time outside of the city in San Francisco, which is an okay thing to do, to be influenced by Silicon Valley. And she's a regular speaker on the UX circuit, and we're very, very, very proud to have her. She's losing her voice, so absolute quiet, except for the thunderous applause. And then she said that if there are any questions, just come up to her after, because she wants to spread the disease one by one. Brilliant, isn't it? Jennifer Fraser, ladies and gentlemen.
So for those of you that don't know me, I really do not always sound like this. So I apologize in advance for the kind of squeakiness you're going to have to endure for the next half hour. I just want to give a quick shout out before I get started to all the organizers, volunteers, and sponsors of UXCamp. Without their time, dedication, and support, we wouldn't be here at this amazing event. So can we just give them a really quick round of applause? So the presentation I'm going to be showing, I am going to put up on the slide share. I tried doing it just over the lunch break, but for some reason it's putting a white background and all my text is white, so it's kind of like a blank slide share up there. So if anybody knows how to fix that problem, can you come talk to me afterwards and help me sort it out? Anyways, I will get it up there, and we'll tweet out the address to it on slide share. So I'm here to talk to you about how to build a UX team. And this is the path we're going to follow for the next kind of half hour. I'm going to start with just talking, a little bit of various facets of experience design. Then earlier today, both Abby and Lou talked about the importance of mapping and how when you map something, you can see them in a new way, which is really timely. So I'm going to talk us through two different tools. The first tool is a way to kind of map the UX spectrum of your team. And then the second tool is a little more detailed, it's a little more tactical, and it goes a little deeper into how you can do a skill set analysis of your team. And then to close, I'm going to talk a little bit about options to grow your team aside from hiring. So I first started thinking about this talk, went online, did a search, wanted to see what was out there in terms of kind of best practices or guidance on how to grow a UX team. Perfectly honest, I was pretty disappointed with what I saw, with what was out there. I don't know, maybe it's not an interesting talk, and if so, I apologize, but there just wasn't a lot out there, which surprised me, because it seemed like a really important thing to be overlooked. I mean, as Jonas said in his talk earlier, the sum of the whole team is greater than the parts. And a lot of what was out there in terms of building UX team, this all felt like a very intro UX 101. You know, you need an interaction designer. This is what an interaction designer does. You should have a visual designer. This is what a visual designer does. You know, there's like raspy charts and kind of tables of roles and responsibilities. And it all just seemed really didactic. You know, it just felt like a recipe. For every one interaction designer, you should have one visual designer and one researcher and a dash of a manager. It just didn't sit right with me for a whole bunch of reasons, although I do love cocktails. So just to give some context, so for my background, I've worked both in part of an in-house user experience design team, and now currently work in a consultancy. So for almost 11.5 years, I worked at Corel. I worked on 3 incredibly different product teams while I was at Corel. And I've been a Macadamian for about 4.5 years, and we're a consultancy. So experience in both of those companies have let me kind of, in a way, look behind the curtain at different places and get some insight into how different companies structure their UX teams. And it's not like a simple recipe. Every team and every company is different. And that's what we're going to dig into more in a little bit. But first, let's step back a bit. So whether you're in-house or in a consultancy, you get to the point where you realize you need to grow your team. You need to hire somebody. This might mean you need to do a business case or some kind of justification for what this person's going to do, maybe what project they're going to work on, maybe how billable they are. So you do whatever you have to do, whatever hoops you need to jump through to get that hiring rec approved. And then, voila, that glorious moment where that rec is approved. But then this is followed by that crushing realization that, holy crap, now I have to hire somebody. Hiring is hard. Hiring is hard for a whole bunch of reasons, including the fact that there's a shortage of UX professionals out there actively looking for work. It's really hard to find them. So much of a shortage, in fact, that Jared Spool even did a Kickstarter campaign at the beginning of the year to start a whole new school to make more UXers. I'll talk more about that later. So back to the moment of jubilation. The rec's approved, it's time to go out and find that UXer to add to your team. And because you wrote the rec, you know exactly what you want, right? But do you? And this is where I want you to kind of stop and step back for a moment. We all know that experience design is a multifaceted profession, and I'm not about to start some kind of boring existential semantic debate about what is experience design. If you took a moment, if you wrote down all the skills it takes to do your job, I'd wager it's a pretty long list. I'd also say that that list is going to be different for each and every one of you. Now this past June, I was lucky enough to go to the Giant Conference that was held in Charleston, South Carolina. And on the second day, Jared Spool did a keynote entitled, It's a Great Time to Be a UX Designer. So this is a photo of Jared doing the talk. Don't worry if you can't read the text. I have a clearer slide in a minute. But how many people out there, how many of you remember this slide from UXCamp Ottawa 3? Yeah, Cornelius told me that Jared showed the same slide at the talk he gave here. But for some reason, it didn't stick with me as much as it did this year. And it stuck with me because it was the most comprehensive list I've ever seen of all the skills that kind of make up experience design. So for years, Jared and his team at UIE have been doing research into effective UX team. And they ended up coming up with essentially 3 buckets of skills. So this is the first bucket that they refer to. First bucket they refer to as kind of the core skills. So these are the kind of table stakes. These are the things that you kind of automatically think of when you think of experience design. So things like information architecture, interaction design, visual design, design research. Really kind of the basic things that we think of when we think of experience design. But then in addition to these core skills, Jared and his team then started looking at specifically UX teams in an enterprise environment. And they found this whole other bucket of skills that they call kind of the enterprise UX skills. So they're the ones shown up there in light blue. So it's things like business knowledge, ROI, agile methods, ethnography. These are the skills that they found that the UXers needed within an enterprise environment to be able to work in a productive manner with the other people in the organization to understand how they were going to influence the design. The third and last dimension that his team looked at was the bucket. They were trying to find what defined people as UX masters or master UX professionals. And these are the 5 skills shown in white. So they're sketching, storytelling, critiquing, facilitating, presenting. They're really what they called the 5 indispensable skills for UX mastery. They're not unique to the UX profession. But what they found was the best UX professionals work hard to really master these skills. Their communication skills, their collaboration skills, and their skills that just make every design better. So where does that leave us? We have a really amazing, comprehensive list of all the skills that make up experience design. But are all experience design jobs created equal? You could go through this list and identify what skills you and your team have and choose to go out and get more of them. Is that what you want? Is more of the same really better? It's tempting, especially if you finish building your UX team. You find somebody that fits really well within your organization. You just kind of want to go out and get more of them, right? Could be that graduates from a certain school have an approach or a process for design that just fits really well within your organization and how it works. For example, when I worked at Corel, we ended up hiring a lot of people from the architecture program at Carleton. We had a similar language, we had a similar way of approaching design and solving design problems. But is more of the same really better? Just like those wacky Kaminoans creating an entire clone army out of Django Fett's DNA. It does make some things easier in terms of that kind of shared vocabulary and a shared approach to doing things, but is it better? If you kind of indulge me with my Star Wars metaphor a little bit further, I mean, how well did the whole more is better thing work out for General Grievous, right? I mean, most of the Jedi had one lightsaber, some of the Sith had two lightsabers, but if more was better, four can only be better, right? And Grievous, well, used the term to be better than the Jedi. But if we go to the very academic and highly illustrious Star Wars wiki, and we look at the art of fighting with two lightsabers, I'm going to actually read a quote from here. Practitioners of two-saber fighting were often overly reliant on their weapons and blade work, since they had two of them, leaving abilities in other areas underdeveloped. So, having more isn't always better, right? Having four lightsabers is possibly leaving other areas for Grievous underdeveloped. And yes, I realize I'm giving us guidance from a Star Wars wiki, but hey, based on that premise, it makes sense. If you go ahead and hire more of the same, what areas are you leaving underdeveloped? Or if you look at it a different way, what areas of UX within your organization will be left underdeveloped if you hire more of the same strengths that you already have? So Liz Bacon did an interesting post on this idea that she entitled Defining UX. Now, similar to those qualities that Jared had, Liz came up with a different way of visualizing it. And she created this view that she called the fields of experience design. And she organized them on a spectrum around the center of definition, communication, and understanding. And then she put the different crafts related to each of those areas around the middle. What I found most interesting in this post that she did, though, was she had a section about hiring. And she talked about how for a given product, a team may need a cross-section of different specialists. So an example Liz gave, she was talking about if you had a team working on, say, a complex medical product, like an EHR, electronic health records management system, the team's going to be much more weighted in the understanding and definition areas. You need some really solid user experience researchers, some solid usability practitioners, really strong interaction designers, because it's an incredibly complex domain, very strong information design. You can see how that maps out on her spectrum. So what happens if you take the same tool and map out a really different kind of team? So I was thinking about a team, 2 years ago, I had got the chance to work into Razorfish team based in London, UK. And they were unlike any other team I've had a chance to work with. So if I mapped their spectrum onto this, it would look something like this. Weighted really, really heavy in the communication area. That team was just hiring their very first interaction designer. All their design iterations were done in really, really high fidelity visual comps. They did do a lot of design research, a lot of analytics, a lot of click-through analysis, a lot of A/B testing in the market to test their marketing campaigns. Service design was important, but the most important thing to them was branding, and looking at branding integration across their multi-platform campaigns that they were running for their customers. So a team composition at this level could be an interesting tool to just visualize and map out areas of strength within a team. Or you can almost think how you could use this to kind of help you identify needs for a project. If you mapped out the project on the spectrum, it could then help you act as a guide to figure out how to best staff it to match the team with the project needs. So with this in mind, let's go back to that business case we made to convince ourselves that it was a good time to hire and ask ourselves some questions. And to help frame some of those questions, I just want to refer to another talk I saw at the Giant Conference by Philip Hunter, who was at Microsoft and now I think he's at Amazon. And his talk was called We're All UX, Designing a Whole Company Design Team. And as part of this presentation he gave, He talked about some self-reflection that they did at Microsoft as a part of a hiring process that they went through. And I really like some of the questions that they asked themselves. He talked about the importance of understanding the strategic context of what and why. What do we need to be done? Why? And how much? And then from that strategic context, to fulfill those goals, what does the team need to be capable of? What do they need to be good at? How good? And what are those priorities? So asking themselves these questions of what and why, who and how much, how and when, it led them to a pretty interesting exercise to assess what competencies they had and what competencies they needed. So similar to what Liz was talking about, they're looking to identify competencies, but different from Liz's diagram, they're trying to look at it in current strengths in relation to the future needs that they're going to have. So they came up with a list. Now this is the slide that was actually from Philip's talk. I don't know what list they actually used, but they came up with a list of competencies. And just like we've already talked about, I'd wager that that list is going to be very different for different companies. So just to give an example, before I went to the Giant Conference and learned about what Philip and his team had done, coincidentally a coworker and I, we had done our own SWOT analysis of our team, and we came up with our own list of competencies. So important to us are things like facilitation. We do a lot of on-site workshops with our clients that are like 1 day, 2 day, 3 day long. And facilitation skills are actually so important when you're working with the different personalities and dynamics within client companies. Comfort with complex design solutions. We do a lot of work in healthcare and aviation, which are incredibly complex domains. Ideation skills. Well, some of the workshops we do are co-creation sessions with our clients. So you need to really be able to design and think on your feet, quickly iterate through different ideas with other people. Healthcare domain knowledge, because we have an entire unit that's focused on healthcare. Research skills, because we have some hybrid interaction designer and researchers. Mobile design experience is important because that makes up a big part of the work we do right now. Visual design skills are important. And the ability to work well with others, not just through the workshops, but also because we do a lot of co-design pairing of people in our team. So this is a list we came up with. But as I said, every team, every company is going to have a different list. And maybe you should just pause and kind of think of what would be on your list. So Philip and his team came up with their list. And they made that table of the skills they needed based on that strategic context of what they needed to be good at. And they put them in a table, and they did a self-assessment. And Philip admitted that this is inherently biased because they did it themselves for their own teams, but at least they gave them a starting point. So they went through and assessed for what they needed to be able to do. So for those skills, what was their current level? Like how good were they now? How good did they need to be? And then how important was that skill to help them fulfill their goal within the strategic future context? Then he applied a bunch of math, and I don't really understand what he did, but I'm sure if you got in touch with Philip, he would explain it to you. I had something to do with, I don't know, perceived gaps and normalized gaps, and they came up with essentially a single value. And they did this assessment across different teams within the organization, so it gave them a way to compare different teams against a company average and just see where the different teams stood. So whereas Liz's visualization is more of a snapshot of like a team composition, Philip's method kind of dove deeper into the actual skills and crafts to see what was missing within the company, within that strategic context of what and why, and understanding what the team needed to be capable of to achieve those future goals. So those are two different tools that can give us a way to understand what areas of UX within the organization are being left underdeveloped if we choose to ignore those gaps and go ahead and build our clone army based on our strengths. So where does that leave us? Right. We're at the hiring is hard part. But at least those tools hopefully gave us a clear understanding of the skill sets the team needs. But the next question is where to find it. Like I already said, we have a shortage of experienced professionals looking for work right now. So until Jared's Unicorn Institute, which is now renamed the Center, starts mass producing our UX unicorns, what other options are there? Well, maybe acquisition, depending on the size of your needs. Could you acquire a company that has the skill sets you're looking for? How many people are familiar with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Come on, put your hand up. Okay, it's one of my favorite stories of all time. So those of you who are familiar with the story, Veruca Salt is one of the children that finds a golden ticket and gets to go on a tour of the chocolate factory. Her parents are incredibly wealthy and she's incredibly spoiled. And for Veruca, the easiest solution to any problem was just to buy it. And so the dialogue on the right is her throwing a temper tantrum wanting to buy one of Willy Wonka's squirrels. Now, I'm not trying to imply that by doing an acquisition that you're going to necessarily end up in the garbage chute like dear Veruca did at the end of the story, but tread lightly. I witnessed many acquisitions when I was at Corral, and they're ripe with cultural challenges. They need to be approached carefully and thoughtfully. There could be a whole other talk done on that, so we're just going to leave that one for now. What about contractors? Another alternative to acquiring a company could be to look for contractors, especially for consultancy. Contractors are an amazing way to help manage the kind of ebb and flow of workload as it rises and falls. Especially if you can build up a resource pool of contractors that has varying skill sets that complements the skill sets of your own employees. Which could be another way that Liz's spectrum analysis could come in handy. You can map out your team competencies in comparison to your contractor pool competencies and see where there's gaps if you overlay them. So if you do use contractors, show them some love. While it does put a burden on the people that are having to staff your projects and kind of manage that resourcing pipeline, contractors can definitely help you through times of increased workload without actually having to affect your headcount. What about another alternative hiring is, who does it already, right? Now you have a clear idea of the skill sets you're looking for. Is there someone in your organization who's already doing it or doing even just a part of it? Is there someone even from outside the UX team that could be cross-trained or further developed to fulfill that need? Could that gap be filled by, I don't know, business analysts, somebody from quality assurance specialist? Maybe the answer is no, but it's worth considering. Is there a way, and do you have the time to kind of grow your own person to fill that gap? And if those options work for you, then go ahead and hire. At least now, I hope I've given you a couple of tools to help you better understand who you should be hiring based on your current strengths and gaps in your team in relation to that future need. And at least you've explored other options to hiring. But the path forward is to hire. Good luck finding your UX unicorn instead of your UX penny. Thanks for listening.
No questions though, but can you actually... It's okay. She survived, right? Can you draw? Can you... I'll even read out the number for you. How's that? $71.